Solitary confinement's issues and how to solve them. The solitary confinement, the issues. Solitary confinement is a common practice used in prisons around the world. Though in the United States, it's often overused, with people being stuck in isolation for many years. The reason for being sent to solitary confinement can be as small as possessing expired toothpaste or worse. The practice of using solitary confinement to solve every infraction by prisoners has caused more problems than it was meant to solve. Humans, like all animals, do not do well when put into isolation away from social contact. For example, Bobby Dalo, who's pictured in there, was in solitary confinement for almost half his life. After a couple of months of being in there, he started to show signs of mental problems. He would do repetitive tasks for hours for no reason, started talking to himself, and started having panic attacks. At one point, he started to become enraged at all the repetitive sounds of the guards in prisons around him, that he couldn't concentrate on anything else. Once Diallo was out of solitary and had a chance to interact with people in the outside world, he found that he couldn't find the confidence to do so or think of what to say to them. Diallo, speaking in an interview, later said that the problem is you're keeping people in segregation too long, and you're putting people who don't in segregation that don't belong there. The same social anxiety as experienced by Diallo has been found across this country. Craig Haney, a psychologist at California's Pelican Bay State Prison, has had prisoners tell him that when they got out of solitary and had a chance to interact with other prisoners, but they had a hard time working up the courage to do so. And in a academic article in the Indiana Law Journal by Elizabeth Buchanan, she stated that prisoners who enter solitary with mental issues usually have them multiplied, and those who enter without issues usually leave with one.
Solitary confinement is when any prisoner is kept in their cell for roughly 23 hours a day, 7 days a week, with very few opportunities to leave. Even that hour, which is supposed to be for rec time, is often in just a slightly larger cage or concrete room. You're in a cell as small as 6 by 8 feet, which people have described as roughly the size of a small bathroom or walk-in closet. It's usually nothing but concrete and steel. You'll have your bunk, you'll have a toilet and sink, maybe a shelf. That's about it. Your only human interaction is a guard's hand shoving food through a slot in the door. Some states can basically keep you in solitary for your entire prison sentence because they consider you a threat to the prison population. That can last decades. Psychologists say solitary confinement can cause or exacerbate mental illness. Studies suggest that people with mental illness, those that are more vulnerable to the trauma of isolation, are even more likely to end up there. But even people who are perfectly sane and stable report really struggling inside solitary, and long after they get out. A prison might use solitary for both trying to separate alleged gang members and as discipline for a wide range of infractions, something as small as having too many postage stamps or not making your bed. And once you're in there, it can be easy to stay. Even if you go into solitary for maybe a 10-day sentence, while you're in there you may break another rule. Those tickets can stack up and you can end up there for years.
The United Nations says that more than 15 days in solitary confinement is considered torture. My proposal to fix the issue of systemic overuse of solitary confinement, and the mental issues and anxiety it causes those suffering in isolation is to set a maximum amount of time people can be put in solitary confinement. By limiting the time people are allowed in isolation, it will lessen the harsh effects it will leave on them. The implementation of this practice would not cost the state of Florida much money to put into effect, and it would be relatively easy and time efficient to set up, as it is just a policy change in how the offenders are punished for infractions. After Colorado implemented a similar policy, they noticed that the prisons that had this policy in effect had a noticeable drop in assault against inmates and staff, which was the lowest it's ever been since 2006.